Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Week 18 cash party. That's right. This is no block party. This is not the best GPP plays. These are the best plays, full stop. Best points per dollar plays for this Week 18 DraftKings slate, where I am taking on all comers in the cash game streets, and is now what has become annual tradition. We are bringing on a fellow DFS cash god, the one and only. We'll work on it. The one and only Derek Carty from Roto Grinders The Blitz. Welcome to the stream, Derek. Excited to chop it up with you today. How you feeling?
I'm feeling great. Honored to be here with the Cash Game King. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, no, it's a huge part of my process every year in week 18 to talk to you on Friday afternoon. I like going through, the blitz, where you're at in the week, getting myself in the mindset of a projection source. So, talk to us a little bit about how your year has been going. Has the blitz been dialed in? Because I will be relying on it a good bit this week.
Yeah, it's been a good year. I'm not going to lie to say it's been the best one. I feel like in general, NFL season has been kind of weird this year. I think projections as a whole haven't had as strong a season as previous ones, but it has been a good year. And I'm, looking to keep it going week 18.
That's right. And, obviously week 18, there's a lot going on. We have, team level motivations. We have player incentives. We have injuries. We have all kinds of stuff going on. Is this the trickiest week of the year for you as far as being on top of projections and all those various variables?
Yeah, it definitely is. You have to consider the team motivations. You have to consider the incentives, which teams are going to rest guys, which guys are only going to play guys for part of the game. There's kind of a lot of moving pieces, and I think a lot more fragility in the projections in week 18 for certain teams than we see at any other point in the year.
So where is the, we'll pull up the blitz when we go position by position, but where are things at for you right now with the projections? Have you done a recent sweep? Are you waiting for Friday news dump? Where are you at?
They should be up to date as of 2-3 hours ago. I don't think we've gotten any news since then that would change anything. So we should be, pretty much up to date.
Before we get into the nitty gritty, I do want to ask, kind of one of the ongoing criticisms of your projection system is this looming specter of a dome boner. And there is this idea out here that you basically just take a regular projection set, and then any game that's in a dome, you just fucking jack that shit up to level 11. Yeah. How do you address those criticisms?
I mean, it's a little switch I built in that said, okay, if it's in a dome, increase the projection by at least 20%. And then every week I can decide, okay, how do I feel? Is this going to be a good one? And I can crank it up to like 30 or 40 some weeks. But no, it's just the way that the math works out. You look at the impact of domes, you look at the impact of wind, and the way that my math comes out, it says that these games tend to be better. You see more passing, you see more efficient passing, and those guys tend to get, a little bit of a bump in the projections, even relative to the rest of the industry. I know the blitz is a little higher on those types of guys than anybody else.
When do you think the rest of the industry will catch up to this phenomenon that some of these teams play in domes and others don't?
It's a good question. I mean, you'd think everyone would know they're playing in domes. No, I really don't have a good answer for it. I know back tests that I've run and I've had people run for me. I want to make sure that I'm not the one that's wrong here, but I don't think I am.
What about, do you ever get like a warm weather boner? Like if there's a really nice game in Miami, it's not too hot, not too cold, no precipitation, would that project as well as a game in the Superdome, or is the dome, the fast track, still going to get an added boost there?
No, if you have like a, 80-degree game with no wind, it's going to project similarly to a dome. Maybe not identically. There are a few differentiating things, but the no wind is the biggest factor of the dome.
Okay. Do you have a private group chat with Kevin Roth where he kind of gives you the early peek at his weather stuff? I know both of you guys are under the Roto Grinders umbrella. Do you guys collaborate on some of this dome boner stuff?
Yeah, I have Kevin's number. We'll talk if I need some inside info on the weather. I will definitely ask him.
There was another rumor going around that, when Better Collective was doing the layoffs, that they basically had the choice to keep the Blitz or the Swolecast. And we kind of know what they ended up going with. Do you have any
Sorry about
comments
that.
about that situation?
No comment. I bear no responsibility.
Okay. All right. Well, just so you know, your existence on Roto Grinders is taking away food from my family. So as long as we can kind of agree on that, we can continue here. I'd like to always give you the opportunity to solicit some head-to-heads during cash game week. People are welcome to send me head-to-heads at Revert Z Top. Here, where can people send Derek Carty head-to-heads?
Very easy. You send them to Derek Carty. That's my username.
That's incredible. And what contest will you be in? Will you be in the massive double ups this week? What kind of cash game action are you looking to get down?
Oh yeah, definitely the massive double up. Plenty of head to heads. That's where you'll find me this week.
Okay, beautiful. Let's start a little bit macro as far as this slate. Obviously, we're going to talk about the Week 18 main slate on DraftKings. Are there any, teams or game environments that you are kind of just Xing out completely for cash, whether because of uncertainty, motivations, or is the entire menu available to you?
I never want to say I'm going to X anything out. If a guy is really cheap in a really bad environment, well, and he's going to get a lot of volume, maybe he's viable. But I think it's probably safe to say that certain situations this week are a little murkier than others, like in terms of, okay, how much are these guys going to play their starters, or are they going to? Teams like Dallas, Green Bay, Washington, maybe. We're just not as confident on some of those as some other teams, but I wouldn't say I'm Xing them out, outright.
Yeah, and I think one of the toughest things is, these teams basically can fall into three different buckets, right? Where we have some teams who have something to play for, win and get into the playoffs. We have some teams that don't have anything to play off, that have been long removed from the playoff picture, and they're just still playing their little hearts out.
Right.
But then we have these teams that are resting players, and you have these backups thrust into starting roles. And it's like those individual players have motivation to do well because they want their chance to shine. And yet the team itself doesn't have that motivation. And to me, that's some of the trickiest spots. Like, I'll throw out a guy, Peyton Hendershot is a guy that's going to start to get a little love. And it's like, what kind of role can you actually expect for these teams that might just be taking a peek at a lot of players and don't actually fully intend to play a guy for the full 60 minutes?
Yeah, exactly. Hendershot's an interesting one. I want to talk about him later because
yeah,
there are ways it sets up for him to be a really good play, and it's going to hinge on Noah Gray. Like, are the Chiefs going to consider Noah Gray like a starter and rest him? Last year they didn't, but his role has been a little different this year. They feel like they've gotten higher on him. But there's only so many guys they can make inactive, so many guys that they have to put on the field. So I'm curious what they do with Noah Gray and how that affects Hendershot, because at 2,500, he is definitely a guy you'd be thinking about if he's kind of the number one tight end for KC this week.
Yeah, and we'll obviously get there when we get to the tight ends. One other kind of macro question for you here. Obviously, the Blitz, you offer a ton of different data, granular stuff on how these players are going to be scoring. And then you have ceiling projections, which I completely disavow. But you also have floor projections. And I just want to ask, would you recommend cash game grinders optimizing off of your median fantasy point projection or the floor projection?
Yeah, I know people talk about how you have to optimize floor and cash games. That's never been the way that I operate. You certainly can use the floor projections to kind of help your process, but I recommend just using the regular mean, 50 percentile projections. I don't think you're trying to maximize floor. I think you're trying to maximize value in cash games and just play the best plays.
You know what? I like that. I think that's a really good PR spin on floor, because floor kind of has a negative connotation for some people. It feels like they're almost waving the white flag or whatever, but optimizing for value, I think that's something we can all rally behind. And in fact, I'd like to put that on a throw pillow and put it in my merch store if I'm able
I will buy
to.
One.
Yeah. All right. I'm going to share the screen here. We're going to pull up the Blitz here. Highly recommend everyone get access to the Blitz here. We'll drop a link in the chat as well as the show notes after the fact. I think we got to start at quarterback. And I would say the biggest thing that has transpired at the quarterback position for week 18 is Brock Purdy not playing. We get Joshua Dobbs stepping in. And because this injury happened on Monday night, the salaries were not adjusted. He is $4,000 on DraftKings, which, as you can see here, as we look at the blitz, means he's popping as a points per dollar play. How strong of a quarterback selection is Joshua Dobbs this week?
I think about as strong of a selection as you can ask for. He's a lock for me this week. Joshua Dobbs is in the shell. He's going to make the final lineup. I see no reason not to. He's a guy who can score points with his legs, can rush for a lot of yards, is in a great system, great talent around him, and he's 4K. I see no reason not to play Dobbs.
Yeah. Joshua Dobbs, I wrote him up in a Fantasy Life piece that went up earlier today. Normally don't like to give people a look at my shell this early, a little indecent exposure there, like to keep things close to the vest, but Dobbs stands out as such, just a massive, obvious play that I felt like sharing that one. I will say, if there is push for a non-Dobbs quarterback in cash, I do think it is going to be this Joe Flacco spot here in the dome. He also, you can see here, projecting as the second best points per dollar play. Would you kill someone for showing up in cash with Joe Flacco this week?
No, I wouldn't. I don't think you have to spend the extra $1,200 on him, but Flacco does project really well. If Dobbs were not on the slate, he'd be the guy I was playing. Like you said, he's in a dome. It's one of the fastest paced games of the week. They pass a lot more with Flacco. He sets up really well here.
Carty, can I make it, like, just as someone who's trying to screen share right now, and I want to be able to go back and forth between the salaries, the opponents, all this stuff, and then to get to the good stuff, the points per dollar, I got to slide all the way over on this table. It's kind of a screen share nightmare. Is there anything we could do to kind of fix that?
Okay. Yep. You know what we can do? Scroll up a little bit.
Yep.
Click on underneath my name, part of the product, the Blitz.
Yes.
Okay. Scroll down a little bit. Go to forgive the name of the page. It's called Advanced GPP Metrics.
Oh my God.
I know. I'm sorry.
You want me to click this?
I do. We're not going to use it for GPP purposes. Absolutely not.
Okay.
Now, if you
okay.
select the slate at the top, so we only do the 1 p.m. Sunday slate.
Yep. Also, you got to pin the main slate to the top, man. You got to pin the main slate to the top.
That's not my decision, unfortunately. It should be up there. And then if you click expand,
okay.
Never mind.
Oh no. All I see is ownership percentage and smash percentage. What am I looking at, Carty?
So I forgot that I have mine set up to exclude a bunch of those columns. So I have mine to just show mostly the cash stuff that I want.
How am I not able to remove these columns, but you are? Is this behind the scenes?
It must be. It must be.
Oh my God. This is, I can't believe, was this a trap? Was this a honeypot situation for you to get me to click something GPP related?
I would never. And I hope you know me better than that.
Okay. I'm literally losing subscribers as we talk right now.
Yeah,
people are revoking their subscription.
My bad. I'm very, very sorry, guys. Not my intention.
Okay. I need to get the words advanced GPP metrics off my screen. Do we need to go back to the standard projections?
Yeah, just go back to the standard.
Okay. All right, guys, listen, hang on. I need to go full screen here real quick. My host, who I generally try to make feel at home, I try to promote their stuff. I never want to throw them under the bus, but I just want you guys to know that I would never do that to you guys. And he made me click that button as a way to show off his product. And between you and me, it was vile behavior. I apologize on behalf of Derek Carty. It will not happen again. Can we all please just move forward? Let's memory wipe what just happened, pretend like it never happened, and move forward and have a good show. Can this be a forward-thinking show? Can we put that behind us? It's water under the bridge. All right, Derek Carty, I talked to everyone there. Hopefully you had your earmuffs on.
I just want to come out and just offer an apology. Like I feel terribly about that. That's not my intention at all. I'm a cash game grinder. I would never try to sell you guys GPP tools. I thought it was just going to be an easy way to look at the point per dollar, and I apologize. I didn't want to put that into your brains.
Okay. All right. I'm glad we can, we can move forward with that. Let's get back here. We talked about Flacco. We talked about Josh Dobbs. I think the other thing that could happen on this slate is that there's so much value opening up in a lot of different spots that someone might say, what if I want to pay up for quarterback? What if I don't even want to deal with Dobbs, Flacco? We know there's a lot of risks there with those guys just bottoming out. What if I want to pay up for someone? Who would that pay up quarterback be?
I guess it's probably Baker Mayfield or Jaden Daniels, but I really don't think paying up is the move this week. There's high-end running backs, there's high-end receivers that we want to get access to, maybe even high-end tight ends. I think you're paying up probably to one of those two, but I think that's a mistake.
All right. So is this a pretty short conversation? We mentioned Dobbs. We mentioned maybe Flacco getting the silver medal. Who would make the podium there as the third viable cash game play for you?
It's gross, but maybe like Mac Jones again, just because he's cheap and it's a great game environment. But if you're going to play Mac Jones, why wouldn't you just play Flacco or Dobbs?
Right. If it's just a worse version of those plays, how much do you think what do you think Dobbs' salary would have been if the salaries came out after that injury?
I mean, I think a fair salary would be at least like $6K or $5,500.
Wow. So you think he's over $2K mispriced?
Maybe not quite that high, $5,500. So $1,500 mispriced.
How does Joshua Dobbs? Because we had a few other 4K quarterbacks this year, right? Am I thinking did we have a Tommy DeVito 4K? We had a few others. How does he compare to other 4Ks from a projection standpoint?
I'd have to confirm, but I'm pretty sure he projects as the top, as the best 4K quarterback we've seen all year.
Wow. And let me ask you one more kind of comparison thing. It was last year, week 18. It was Nick Mullins. It was Nick Mullins in the Dome.
That's right.
Who was just the obvious play. And I forget how much Nick Mullins was. But how do you think Dobbs this year compares to Mullins last year?
I mean, it compares pretty favorably, I think. Like Dobbs himself is in a dome here. He's in a great offense. He's got great guys to throw to. He's in a system that, tends to just make any quarterback look decent at worst. And he can run. No, I think Dobbs is as good of a play as you can hope for in cash games at this price.
Wow. Normally, I feel like there's a little bit more debate here. Would you kind of say with this Joshua Dobbs situation, it's kind of a prove it slate and you need to make your opponent show up with him in cash?
I would absolutely call it a prove it slate. Yeah. Play Josh Dobbs, or if you don't, take my games.
All right. That's what I like to hear. That is indeed what I like to hear. All right, this is what we're going to do. We are going to move over to the running back position next. And I think there's a lot more interesting conversations here at running back. You mentioned we have some really nice pay up options. We also have some really nice value options opening up here. I'm going to once again sort by points per dollar. Let's start on the high end, because I think that's let's get some premium plays in here. Bucky Irving, Bijan Robinson seem like they stand out here. It looks like the Blitz agrees. How are you kind of thinking of running back roster construction? Is this the 3 running back week? Who are the top prizes that you want to jam in?
I don't think it's clearly a 3 running back week. I think 4 wide receivers is equally viable this week. I don't think you can get Bijan and Bucky, even though they're going to be probably the 2 chalkiest on the slate. I don't see a construction that makes sense with both of them. And for me, I'd rather just play Bucky. You save 800. You can see they project pretty similarly between the 2 of them. And I think Bucky's I like his game environment and just kind of his role certainty better than I like Bijan's this week. Like Tampa Bay has to win. We know he's the guy now. They've come out and basically said it. They don't really trust Rachaad White as much. They like Bucky. He's going to be out there. He's going to be getting the bulk of the work. We've seen it the last 2 weeks. Bijan is in a game script where Atlanta could be blowing them out. That's not necessarily a good thing for Bijan, because what we've seen Atlanta do in a lot of games like that is give Tyler Algier more carries instead of Bijan. So I think Bijan is maybe not quite as good of a play as the field thinks. Obviously a good one, but I don't see how you're going to spend up for both of them, and I'd much rather just save the money on Bucky, who projects pretty similar anyway.
Let me give a counter argument to that. I think you could also say something similar about the Bucks, that they're likely to blow out the Saints, and that we could see a little bit of Sean Tucker. I think you could also make the argument, hey, they really want to go out here and get Mike Evans this record. Maybe they're throwing the ball. We already saw this offense spreading the ball around a lot last week. We've seen them ride the hot hand at the running back position, and we've seen Bucky's usage be pretty game script dependent. We've seen him against the Giants, the Panthers, get to be a lead back, but we've also seen games where they use Rachaad White a lot. I mean, Bijan, though, has not come off the field. Like, they have really relegated Tyler Algier to more of an ancillary role. Are you worried about any of those machinations perhaps not making Bucky as safe of a play as you would want?
No, you're absolutely right. I mean, anytime, as much as we want certainty, especially in cash games, we're always talking about probability. We're always talking about a range of outcomes. And there are definitely scenarios where the Bucks blow them out, and then it's not Bucky in there. They're playing Sean Tucker, just garbage carries or something like that. We probably will see some of those. So yeah, I mean, theoretically, that should all be baked into the projection, and we see them projecting pretty closely right now. And it's not like I dislike Bijan. Like, you can see the projections like Bijan.
Yeah.
But I do think it's the kind of week where saving that money where they project so similarly puts you in a spot to be able to spend on other things that we'll talk about later.
Yeah, and it will be interesting, because I completely agree that it's going to be a big decision point for people, because I think if you do just open up the app and you put a player in, you want to put Bijan in. But like you said, you're also going to fill out the rest of your lineup, maybe run into a dead end, and you say moving from Bijan to Bucky is what unlocks the perfect lineup. And so that's going to be a decision point this week. I want to talk about Michael Carter. He's popping here at the top. Obviously, no James Conner. Have we gotten Trey Benson news? Is he for sure out?
Yeah, he's out.
He's out.
I think they put him on IR. Like, he's definitely gone.
Okay, yeah.
Sure. Yeah.
Michael Carter scares the shit out of me. I will tell you that right now. We've seen them use secondary backs. We saw them use DJ Dallas at the goal line, even when other backs were healthy. Can you talk to me about what it takes to trust Michael Carter in your Week 18 cash game lineup?
So I know it feels gross, but I'm actually kind of excited about Michael Carter this week. Like, he feels like he's just going to step into the James Conner role, and he costs $4,700. Yeah, they have DJ Dallas, but they don't really like DJ Dallas. I mean, since week 10, they've given DJ Dallas 4 carries, and that's with Benson being out a lot of games, Conner being on and off the field. They have tended to lean much more towards Michael Carter. And they came out this week even and said, okay, looks like Conner's probably not going to play. I think it's fair to expect Michael Carter to get a lot of carries. Plus, he's a guy we know they can use in the passing game. I see him having not exactly Conner's role, but pretty close to it. And he's so cheap. Now, there are lots of good running back options this week, but I think he's my favorite this week. I don't see a scenario where I don't play Carter.
You know what? The one, I mentioned some of my concerns. Like you said, it feels gross, but honestly, one of my biggest concerns might be, will people think I'm forcing a bring back on my quarterback?
You don't want them
if I play Joshua Dobbs.
Because it's not just about winning cash games. You also need people to respect you. And if they think you're doing something like that, it's dicey, but I think really the value is there. I'd like to think people just realize we're doing this for value.
Because last year I ran into a similar spot. We essentially ran out a Nick Mullins double stack in cash with Justin Jefferson and Johnny Munt, and people said that I wasn't a true cash game king, and I was just still, relying on my GPP bro ways.
Yeah, no, and you don't want them to think that. Like, you want them to realize, okay, I'm out here. This is cash games. There's no GPP thoughts going on here. I'm just playing the best values. And when it happens to work out that, oh no, it looks like a bring back, that kind of sucks because it's your reputation on the line, really. And you don't want people to get the wrong idea here.
Let's talk about the other cheap running back play that opened up, and let me make the the long scroll back over here so I can see some of these salaries. Michael Carter is 4,700 there for our audio listeners, and then to frame it, Bijan is 8,500. Bucky is 7,700. The other cheap guy down here, and the situation people are going to be looking to exploit, is the Eagles. Obviously, Barkley is going to be resting. Sirianni said they're going to be resting their starters. This spot is maybe even trickier than the Cardinal situation because we do have a rookie in Will Shipley who we expect to get some touches. The other dynamic here is, unlike the Cardinals, who are probably just going to be playing a lot of their other offensive line starters, the Eagles are likely going to be resting players on their offensive line. So how do you think about this Eagles spot and this idea that they might not even have the horses up front that paved the way for a 2,000-yard season?
Yeah, Gainwell's a guy who I want to like for cash games, but I don't think I can. Like he's clearly the number 2 running back there. They love Gainwell, but they might like him almost too much where they decide, okay, like if we knew Gainwell was going to go out and he was going to be the workhorse and he was going to get the carries and we know he's great in the pass game, like he would be a smash here. But they might like him too much where they actually don't use him that much and they give more to Shipley instead. Plus you have the OL things like you're talking about. I think there's too much uncertainty with Gainwell. Even his projection now, like I have him projected pretty conservatively and he still projects well. I might even lower some of his usage rates a little bit because I do think there's a chance that they just say we don't need to risk Gainwell this week.
So are you saying here, because we see him as the 3rd points per dollar value at the position, are you thinking about IK being your own projection or adjusting this projection?
Maybe a little bit of both. I'll probably adjust it a little, but at the end of the day, I probably won't play Gainwell just because even if the projection looks good, I think we need to acknowledge when a projection is potentially fragile and whether you want to go out on a limb with a fragile projection. There's comparable enough value where I don't think you need to go out on a limb with a running back this week. Like there are enough cheaper running backs this week where, okay, Gainwell, I'm not sure if he's going to get all the work. Maybe I just play Blake Corum instead or something like that. So I don't want to take the risk with Gainwell.
I'm so glad you said that name because that was the next name I was going to bring up. Because I wrote up my piece for Fantasy Life. I was looking at your projections. I was looking at ETR projections. And I feel like I'm on an island with Blake Corum in that I thought he was going to pop as the 2nd or 3rd best value play on this slate. I think he's a better version of the Gainwell play. At 5,600, obviously the Rams are resting their starters, yet they actually still have a little incentive to play well because they can avoid the Vikings or Lions. So I like that combination. They haven't given another running back other than Ronnie Rivers a touch since week 4. Like why isn't Blake Corum popping more in your projection system and in others?
It's a good question because I was expecting him to pop more. I think part of it is maybe some uncertainty in what his pass game role is going to be. Like Kyren Williams, I mean, if you put your hand in the dirt, probably not a great pass catcher to begin with, but doesn't get a ton of targets. Like if Corum just gets that, it's kind of just okay. But I like Corum. I do. And I think he's going to wind up being fairly popular. I'm surprised systems don't like him as much. I think for whatever reason, he's just not on that page. I don't know why. I think that for some reason the UI is excluding some guys. But he would be up there around that Gainwell area, I think. If you go into lineup HQ, it should show everybody and you can sort by.
Well, I see Blake Corum here. He's down here between Tyler Algier and CEH.
Is that scroll over to the right for a second? Is that see his
I'm sorted by points per dollar.
Is he really? That's point per dollar.
That's why I'm stunned. You have him at wait, why is that?
I knew something was weird going on. It's not sorting right then. That's the issue.
Where is he? What? Something's not sorting right. I can't get it. It like breaks it off.
Yeah, I don't understand why it's doing that.
Man, I am sure giving your tables the
I
workaround today,
I
Derek.
know. Yeah.
All right, so hang on. Let me see where he actually slots. 2.75. Okay. All right, so he slots right under Bijan and ahead of Charbonnet. All right, that
Yeah.
now I don't feel like I'm taking crazy pills at least.
Okay, good. Yeah. That's where I would expect him to be.
Okay. All right, we mentioned these top guys here. We're obviously getting into thinner territory beyond those five we've discussed. Of this next tier, anyone in the conversation for you? Sharbs, Dobbins, Achan, Sanders, JT?
Not for cash, no.
Yeah. I guess the one other option I could see people being intrigued by is just JT. Obviously, coming off of two monster games, he is 300 cheaper than Bijan, and then just a really choice matchup against the Jags. Hard to see him not having a nice game here.
Yeah, I think he's fine. If I'm going to spend that much, I'd rather just play Bijan or
Yeah.
save the money on Bucky. The other thing is, I mean, he's probably going to play a whole game, but Indy was just eliminated. We've never seen Steichen in a game like this before. Like, there's a chance he decides to rest some guys like JT or not give him a full workload. I don't think that's the most likely outcome, but you never know. I think I'd rather just play Bijan or Bucky.
Okay. Appreciate everyone tuning in for the cash game party. I am here with Derek Carty from the Blitz Projection Systems. We're walking through all of the best plays. If you're tuning in late, we hit on quarterbacks and running backs. We're about to move on to wide receiver. If you guys are new to cash game week, I will be taking on all comers on DraftKings. You can send me a head-to-head, revert Z top, and I will accept that. And on top of that, I will have a solo DFS After Dark show on Saturday night for YouTube members. I will be doing Off and On the Clock with the Badge Bros immediately following this, talking about the best plays on Underdog this week. And then on Sunday, I will, of course, convene with the Gilcast Bros for a slate recap. We will be competing in a 4-man contest on DraftKings as well. Excited to stuff Nate Noling and Davis Maddock in their respective lockers in that contest. All right, let's head over to wide receiver here. And we can start with, I'm very excited to see the player you have at the top, because this is also my top play on the slate. And I think it's interesting because a lot of people are going to want to gravitate to Mike Evans this week. Mike Evans is very expensive and is not grading out as strong of a points per dollar play. Can we talk at the high end, Brian Thomas versus Mike Evans, or any other kind of high end plays that you think are in the conversation?
Yeah, I think everyone wants to play Evans. Like, we've heard so much about his contract incentives this week and how we think the Bucs are going to, go crazy feeding Mike Evans. But you listen to what they've said, and they've said, okay, we want Mike Evans to get there, but not at the expense of us, winning the game is most important. They need to win this game. This is a huge high motivation spot for them. And it's not like Mike Evans' incentives are anything outrageous. It's like 5 catches and 83 yards. That's a somewhat normal game for Mike Evans. They don't have to force feed him for him to just get that. And at 8K, you're not getting any sort of discount. You're not expecting any sort of huge spike based on the incentives. I kind of think Mike Evans is overrated. I would much rather have Brian Thomas Jr., whose target share has been massive the last few weeks, who's in the better game environment. It's going to be a closer game where they have to throw more, whereas the Bucs game could be a blowout. Evans could be resting in the fourth quarter. But Thomas is in a dome, fast-paced game, getting so much work. Every week they come out and they hype him up and they talk about how great he is and how they keep putting more routes and more different ways to use him, on his shoulders, and how great he's taking it. I think Thomas is the best play this week.
Yeah, I am completely with you. I wrote up the exact same thing in my Fantasy Life article, breaking down some of my early shell looks there. I mean, Brian Thomas is everything you could want from a floor standpoint, a target standpoint, ceiling standpoint, all of that good stuff. And we already talked about, hey, Mac Jones being the third best quarterback play on the slate. You can just get your exposure via Brian Thomas Jr. there. That's how I'm going to get my Mac Jones exposure, Carty.
You certainly can. Especially, I mean, if we're doing strictly cash games where a Mac Jones stack is not not even in our mind, then absolutely you want to get Brian Thomas in your cash.
All right. I did just see your DM recommending we head over to the optimizer here to view this.
Yeah, because of that sorting issue on that page, this should definitely have this should not be.
Is it RGV for points per
No,
dollar?
you're gonna have
Where
to.
is it?
It is called. Let me look real
Oh
quick.
my goodness, are they? They're trying
It's
to. They're trying to
it's
shadow
4
ban.
columns to the right of RGV. It's called point per dollar.
Okay. Man, these tables. I tell you what, man. Okay. To the right of RGV?
Yeah.
Man, we are struggling today.
Yeah, we are.
It's
Sorry
all this
about
GPP nonsense in
that. It's
here.
all these GPP things that we don't even care about. The bar on the bottom. I think if you scroll a little more to the right, it should show up.
Okay, here we go. Here we go. Come on. Points per dollar. There we are. All right, we're back.
What we care about. Come on now.
We're back. Look at these. You think Davis Maddock has put in his expert plays already? Alert. Davis Maddock's expert plays are in. Okay. Let me get over to wide receiver here. So I can actually see this. Points per dollar. All right. There's Brian Thomas Jr. Talked about him. Josh Downs. This is a really interesting one because Josh Downs, I did not play cash last week. I was doing really horrible, unspeakable things in the GPP streets. I assume Josh Downs was overwhelmingly popular last week in cash.
Yeah, he was pretty popular.
And he burned everybody. He sat in the cuck chair while Michael Pittman and Alec Pierce did their thing. How do you tell Cash Game Nation that they can go back to the Josh Downs well after he burned everyone last week?
I mean, it's something you have to tell cash game players a lot because you want that consistency. You want to win week after week, and you don't want to go back to someone who burned you, but you have to stay objective. You can't let, the past influence, the recency bias influence what you're going to do this week. And you just have to realize that Josh Downs is still Josh Downs. Joe Flacco loves him. This game environment is great. Indoors, close game, fast paced. His target share for the year has been huge. You just don't let one game, cloud your thinking. You say this is a guy for 5.3K that's really good and is in a really good spot.
But can't you just, I'm looking here at the points per dollar. We got Michael Pittman, who not only outproduced him last week, but is $100 cheaper.
Yeah, he's right there too.
Yeah. Why play? Is it one or the other for you? Would you consider playing both of these? And I guess why not Pittman over Downs?
At their prices, I think you certainly could play both. I'm not going out of my way to do it, but I'm not avoiding it either. Like you can see independently, they're both very good point per dollar plays. It's just a matter of, I think who fits. If you have that extra 100, I probably play Downs. If not, I'll play Pittman. I'm not going to try to get precise about it. Like they're both good plays. They're in pretty similar spots, similarly priced. They're both good.
I think that's where you and I are kind of different because I have to get precise about it. I have to be exact. I can't leave anything to happenstance this week, Derek. I need to be dialed the fuck in that $100 difference and what I'm getting if I'm buying the Colts wide receiver A or the Colts wide receiver B. That's going to go a long way in determining how my week 18 goes. Do you understand that?
I do understand that.
Okay. Good. Let's talk about Juwan Jennings, who is another interesting one here where I hate to get in the weeds and no ball, but there's been a bit of a change in Juwan Jennings' role over the past few weeks. We've seen a concerted effort to get Deebo Samuel more involved. We've seen a concerted effort to get Ricky Pearsall going, who had a breakout game on Monday night. Now he has a backup quarterback, so he doesn't even have that connection he had with Brock Purdy. How in the world is Juwan Jennings projecting as the third best points per dollar play on this slate?
So part of it is, first, you look at his overall body of work, and he's still leading the team in targets. Even, last week, they got Ricky Pearsall involved. Jennings had just as many targets as Pearsall. The other thing is Jennings does have some potential incentives this week. He's maybe 82-ish yards or something away from 1,000. and Shanahan has come out and said basically like, okay, we're eliminated. We're not playing next week. It'd be nice to get Jennings to this number. So theoretically, Jennings is going to be the top option here. They're going to be featuring him more, trying to get him the ball more. It's a good game environment, and he's pretty cheap for a guy who could see, if they want to get him those 80 yards, that could wind up being like a 30% target share.
What is your general feel right now? Obviously, we talked about Brian Thomas on the high end. We're talking about a lot of mid 5K guys right now. In a second, we'll get to some of the cheap guys under 4K. For with your builds right now, your shell, is it looking like high end guy, 5K guy, punt guy, or 2 5K guys?
Right now, I'm leaning towards 2 5K guys. I mean, there are certainly plenty of punt plays that you can see have decent point per dollar value. I don't love any of them.
Yeah.
Whereas I think all the 5K guys like are pretty locked into really good roles and really good game environments. So that's the way I'm leaning right now.
Because ultimately, how this is probably going to come down is if you did want to play both Bijan and Bucky, you're going to have to play.
Then you'd have to play, yeah,
a punt. And I'm with you. Like, there are no clean punts here. Starting with the points per dollar, we have the Chiefs wide receivers, Juju and Justin Watson. We have Turpin on the Cowboys. And then the Rams wide receivers, Tutu, Jordan Whittington, Tyler Johnson. Like, none of those are standing out to me as comfortable plays when it's all on the line.
No, none of those stand out to me as what we want for those purposes either.
As far as like team situations, backup Chiefs, backup Rams, do you have any leans there? If you did have to, I put a gun to your head and I said, Derek Carty, you're going to put one of these sub 4K guys in your lineup and you're going to fucking do it right now. Do it. Who are you putting in? Sorry.
It's probably,
that was excessive.
It was excessive, but I mean, sometimes you need to play those scenarios out to really get your brain to give you the answer that you need. So I think for me, it's probably Juju or Tutu Atwell, probably Juju, but it's tough. None of them are. It's not like we've really seen any of these guys in the roles they're going to be in this week very much. So we're kind of just speculating to an extent, but Juju's been in the system a long time. We know they like him, but not as much as they like these other guys. I think we can be fairly confident Juju's going to be the top option there. I think we can be fairly confident Tutu's going to be the top option for LA. That's where I would lean.
We know how valuable wide receiver scoring is on DraftKings and how much it can hurt you to take multiple low scores there. Do you think if there was a path to get to 2 higher end guys, would it be Drake London as your second one with Brian Thomas?
I do like Drake London a lot this week. I don't like him considerably more than the 5K guys, so I don't see a reason to spend that extra 1,000. If I was going to try to get up to another higher price guy, maybe I try to get up to Bijan at running back. But I don't see much need for it. Those 5K guys, I think, look great this week.
Yeah, a couple of the other 5K guy we haven't talked about is Jacoby Myers. I mean, talk about if you're going to have a Mount Rushmore of cash game wide receiver plays. I mean, over the years, Jacoby Myers has to be on it. We have seen, an interesting dynamic play out this year with Brock Bowers. You finally have another alpha target earner. I guess he had Devontae Adams alongside him as well. But we've seen some kind of lower floor games from Jacoby. How do you think about him in this spot? And he did have the bounce back last week.
Yeah, I like Jacoby a lot. He's a guy I've played in cash a few times this year. He's had some of those, low floor games because he plays for the Raiders, and the Raiders are a really bad offense, and sometimes 2 guys can't get there. But when you look at it on the whole, he's actually out-targeted Bowers in games without Devontae Adams. And he's just a better receiver than people think. Playing with a better quarterback in O'Connell than I think people realize. Like, he's not good, but like in terms of backup quarterbacks go, I think he's on the higher end. They're indoors, which we know the blitz loves. And And there's some incentive stuff for him too. There's some for Bowers where they, they want him to keep the, hold off Malik Neighbors for the rookie receptions record or whatever. But Myers, I think, like 90 yards away from 1,000 yards. Pierce has talked about potentially, trying to play into this for his guys. So I do like Jacoby Myers.
Yeah. I think for me, if I were breaking the tie between, Juwan and Jacoby in the same range, I definitely would rather err on the side of Myers there. Actually, that might be a Freudian slip. Err on the side of Pittman there. Any other wide receivers we haven't hit on? Are there any injury spots where you're like, oh, if this opened up, if we got this guy as a cheapie, sub 4K, that you'd be interested in it, or anything along those lines?
I don't think so, unless I'm forgetting a spot. I don't think one of those really exists this week. Is there someone you're thinking of?
No, not specifically. I just didn't know if like there is a path to where the slate could get flipped on its head because we actually have a good sub 4K punt play wide receiver.
Yeah, I don't see that path this week.
One other player maybe to ask you about, because I know I believe he's popping in ETR optimals right now, is JSN at 6.1K. He's had a really high floor this year with his targets, been a pretty consistent producer. Thoughts on JSN being in the cash game conversation?
I like JSN. I worry a little bit about, first, Seattle's motivation having just been eliminated, and then also I think it was Ryan Grubb who came out and said that they'd like to get Metcalf to 1,000 yards. So it's basically, for most of this year, like, JSN has kind of operated as the 1A and Metcalf has been the 1B. If we see those roles flip this week, because they try to feed Metcalf a little more, that probably knocks JSN out of the conversation for me. Not that I think he's a bad play. But that would be enough for him not to be a cash play for me.
I guess one other name to just kind of float out there, because he had such an awesome game on Monday night, would be Zacchaeus down here at 4.5K. He's coming off a back-to-back really nice games here. Any thoughts about how he fits into the picture?
If you think he's going to get another, like, whatever he got last week, 28% target share or something, sure. I think that's unlikely. There are also some concerns about motivation for Washington this week. Like, it's possible the starters don't play the whole game. This really, most of the year, has been an offense that spreads the ball around more, especially their receivers. So I don't love it. Not in cash, at least.
Gotcha. All right, let's head over to tight end. I think tight end, of all the positions, I guess wide receiver is pretty interesting to discuss. Tight end, I think, is really interesting to discuss this week. And you can kind of see here by the points per dollar, no one's really separating. And there's going to be a huge decision point of, do you pay up for Brock Bowers or Trey McBride? Do you live in the mid-range with these Strange, Ferguson, Johnson, Ertz plays? Or do you punt it off with a Hendershot? Do you think that's a fair characterization of kind of the decision point this week?
Yeah, absolutely.
And obviously the top end guys are bubbling up to the top, but not in, an absurd way as far as separating. What are your thoughts on elite tight end in general this week, and then Brock versus Trey McBride straight up?
I don't have a strong lean on either of those. I think right now, the way my builds are turning out, just from a structure standpoint, it's playing one of these elite tight ends. I probably go with Bowers over McBride, but I really don't have a strong lean. I think they're very similar. Again, I kind of mentioned it earlier. Like, if we get some news that Noah Gray's not going to play much, then the Hendershot route becomes much more appealing, I think. But right now, I'm projecting Noah Gray to play not like a spiked role, but like still play it a little bit, which is enough to kind of keep Hendershot as, a guy that could really theoretically get you 0.
The reason it's so tricky, right, is because we've seen both the kind of the floor and the ceiling games from Brock Bowers and Trey McBride. And if you get the 10 to 11 points from them and Peyton Hendershot has 6, like you're in big trouble. Like you're in big trouble having spent that much money. On the other hand, if you go the Hendershot route and one of Brock or McBride goes for 20 plus, you're in really big trouble.
Yeah.
And obviously you're playing a 2v2 with another position that you're paying up for. But Brock and McBride both have pretty scary ceilings to fade. How about this with Brock? You mentioned liking Jacoby. Would you ever play both of those guys together, or would you be worried there about what that would do for your lineup?
I'd be more worried about what it would do for my reputation. People thinking I'm trying to stack Vegas. But from a value perspective, I have no problem doing it. They're both great plays. That's where most of the volume in this this Vegas offense is going to go. I have no problem with it if that's the way it works out.
Yeah, I think this is going to be really tricky because, you know, in the cash streets, it's never pay up for tight end, right? I mean, over the large sample, not paying up for tight end will put you in the green over time. But this week, Carty, is that going to maybe buck the trend?
I think that's definitely the trend that most cash players think about. I think it has started to shift a little bit where this year, you know, these elite tight ends are really good. Like they're basically receivers that you're getting for $1,000 less than they should be priced at, and you get to play them at tight end. So I don't mind spending up at tight end this year. I don't mind doing it this week. If you want to save money, you can go ahead. I don't know if there's anyone like at wide receiver that we would put the savings towards that.
Uh-oh. Did my guest freeze on me?
Oh,
I think you're back. You're back.
Did I freeze?
Yeah, you froze for a second. You said there was, I last heard you, there's no one else you'd put the savings toward.
Right. At wide receiver, I don't know what you'd put the savings towards that you feel really confident is like the guy that you want to get. I'd rather just spend up at tight end as of right now, I think, the way I'm building lineups.
Yeah. That's interesting. You know, we started the show talking a little bit about the Hendershot thing. That one is really tricky. To me, it does feel like, again, you can get away with punting at tight end. Like that is the one position you can really get away with it. It does just fully feel like waving the white flag. I mean, at that position, the guy has had 3 targets on the year. You already mentioned we don't even know what's going to happen with Noah Gray. It's really hard to tell yourself a story, I feel like, of this guy putting up a solid score. It's more just like, can you survive the score?
Yeah, it almost feels, I mean, with the range of outcomes we're talking about here, it almost feels like I don't even want to say it.
Say
It
it.
almost feels like a GPP play. Like if, I know. Because he could get you 20 points or he could get you 0. And or Noah Gray could not play at all and he could get 0. And then Hendershot's kind of the same thing, I feel like. So I don't know if he's a cash play for me.
If you had to choose between one of these 3K guys, the points per dollars here, Brenton Strange, Jake Ferguson, Juwan Johnson, do you have a favorite out of those guys?
Not really. I don't love them. I don't feel super confident in any of them. They project well enough for their prices. They all have decent roles in the offense, but they all have low floors. I think I'd rather go up or down.
Mm-hmm. Man, this is, this show was interesting for me because I love that it rubber stamped a few things I feel very strongly about. It also opened me up to some plays that I hadn't fully considered that are now on the menu. And it also illuminated how tricky I think your third wide receiver spot in the tight end decision is this week.
Yeah, it really is. I think that's what a lot of this hinges on this week is those spots.
And wouldn't you say, and you've been playing cash all year, to me, that makes it seem like this is going to be less of a week where there's going to be a big train of lineups. And because there are a few big decision points, that is going to ultimately spread out the amount of teams that people show up with.
Yeah, I think it's the kind of week where we have a lot of options and, there will certainly be people congregating on certain plays, more. But there are enough options and alternatives at running back, at tight end, at wide receiver, where I do think we'll see a good mix of lineups.
All right, let's do something to close this out. let's do a 6-round snake draft of the we each do 3 picks. The best plays on the slate, position agnostic, just the absolute best plays. I'll let you take the 101, and then I'll get the 102 and the 201.
All right. Give me Brian Thomas Jr.
Wow. Okay. I thought for sure you were going to take who I'm going to take, which is Joshua Dobbs.
That's who I want. That's what I was deciding between. I think Flacco's good enough where if you had to play Flacco, you could, but I do prefer Dobbs.
I will say that is like the clear first round of this draft that we just made. And now it really becomes a choose your own adventure. I'm going to go ahead. This might be controversial because I think we differ on this one. I'm going to take Bijan Robinson with the 201.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with that. I like Bijan this week.
Yeah.
I'm going to take Michael Carter.
Okay. Yeah, all running back round 2. And now you get the first pick of the 3rd round, your 3rd and final best pick on the slate in this draft.
I'm torn between Bucky and Jennings, but I'll go Jennings.
Okay. And I'll see your Jennings, and I'm going to go with Michael Pittman at 5.2K here to round it out. So we gave you guys the quarterback, high-end wide receiver there. We both went running backs. I went high with Bijan. Carty saved money there with Michael Carter. And then we both lived in the 5Ks for wide receivers there. So a little something to get your shells started here. Derek, always love chopping it up with you, getting me in the mindset that I need to accept all of these head-to-heads. Anything else you want to plug on your way out here?
No, that's it. This has been great. I appreciate you having me. If you haven't used the Blitz for sports betting, it's been great for prop bets too. And we're talking straight bets, none of this parlay nonsense, because you got to come at it with the cash game mindset. But the Blitz has been really good for those for several years running now. So if you're interested in that, definitely let me know.
Beautiful. I have a couple announcements on my cash game stuff as I'm just checking here. I am sold out of $5 head-to-heads. DraftKings will not allow me to add any of those. Any other price point is still fine. I assume I'm going to run out of $10 here shortly, just because that's the other most popular number I get. So if you want to send me one and haven't yet, that is probably your best bet for now. Otherwise, I'm about to do Off and On the Clock with the Badge Bros in 30 minutes. And then I mentioned those other shows. And if you do want to see my write-ups on 4 of the cash game plays that I've been considering for my shell, head over to Fantasy Life. I put that article up earlier today, including a few of the plays we discussed here. Derek, it's been a pleasure. Good luck this week. And we'll see you next year for Week 18 cash games.
Looking forward to it. Thanks a lot.